Welcome to the deep dive. We're heading into the shadows today, specifically into Edgar Allan Poe's utterly chilling story, The Masque of the Red Death.
Yeah, quite a story.
You've shared a fascinating stack of material with us, summaries, different interpretations, and key excerpts from the text itself.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission in this deep dive is to take all that, unpack the layers, explore the symbolism, and really get to the heart of why this tale still gets under our skin.
That's right. It's a story that's, more than just plot. It's atmosphere and meaning
Mhm.
all woven together.
Exactly.
We'll look at what happens, of course, but also what it all might mean, drawing from the perspectives in the material you've provided.
Okay, so let's start with the terrifying antagonist, the thing they're all running from, the Red Death. What does Poe actually show us about this plague?
Well, the descriptions paint a truly horrifying picture. It's not just a sickness, it's a spectacle of death, really.
How so?
The symptoms are sudden and violent, sharp pains and sudden dizziness, and then profuse bleeding at the pores.
And that bleeding, the redness and the horror of blood, that's its unmistakable mark. It's incredibly rapid, too, right?
Oh, incredibly. The whole process, from the first symptom to death, takes no more than half an hour.
Half an hour. Wow.
Imagine a disease that strikes with such speed and such visible, gruesome signs. The text tells us this horror causes others to turn away from him, afraid to try to help.
So it breeds immediate fear and isolation.
Exactly. Total isolation.
Okay, that's the external horror. Now, how does someone like Prince Prospero respond? The material you shared gives us a couple of different ways to view him.
Mm-hmm.
One description calls him happy and strong and wise, but others point to his actions and label him, selfish and flawed.
Right, and some interpretations go further, seeing him as an unjust ruler who does not value the lives of the common people.
That contrast is key, isn't it?
It really is. Regardless of how you see him initially, his reaction to the widespread death is certainly decisive.
Mm-hmm.
Once half his country is gone, he doesn't rally the people or seek a cure.
No, definitely not. He gathers 1,000 of his healthy, happy friends.
Keywords there, healthy and happy.
And retreats. And this isn't just any retreat. It's to a specifically fortified palace described as a large and beautiful stone building with a strong high wall and gates of iron.
And the ultimate act of separation, sealing those gates.
They seal them shut with fire from the inside. The explicit goal is to shut out the sickness, forget the outside world suffering, find safety behind those walls.
Impenetrable walls, or so he thinks.
And behind those walls, they build this world dedicated purely to pleasure music, dancing, beauty, food, wine. It's a deliberate construction of an insulated reality.
A stark contrast, almost defiant, compared to the death and suffering raging just outside.
It immediately sets up the central conflict. Can you actually wall yourself off from something like this, a force that affects everyone?
It's the big question. So after being holed up for, 5 or 6 months?
Yeah, about that. Living this life of insulated luxury. Prospero decides to throw a grand masquerade party.
Right, everyone in costumes and masks, adding another layer of sort of artifice and hiding.
The palace itself almost becomes a character in the story, especially how Poe describes the layout.
Definitely. It's not like, traditional castles where you can see room to room easily.
Mm-hmm.
This one is deliberately confusing, almost labyrinthine. It has a turn every 20 or 30 yards.
Keeps things hidden, and the party unfolds across 7 distinct rooms.
Mm-hmm. The 7 rooms, each decorated in a single color: blue, purple, green, yellow, white, violet, and black.
And each room has stained glass windows matching the wall hangings, bathing everything in that single hue.
Well, almost everything. All except that final 7th room.
Ah, yes, the 7th room.
The hangings are black velvet, but the windows are a jarring, blood-colored red.
Blood-colored, not black windows.
No, red. And this combination, the black and red, creates a truly fearful effect, giving everything inside a wild look. The text even notes that few of the revelers dared to actually go into that room.
It sounds deeply unsettling. And that 7th room also holds something else, right?
Yes, the great black clock. Huge ebony clock.
It ticks away the seconds, and whenever the hour strikes, its sound described kind of paradoxically as a loud, clear voice. Beautiful yet unsettling.
It's so potent it stops everything.
Mm.
The music stops, the dancing stops, everyone just freezes and listens.
Time literally freezing the revelry every hour.
Yeah. So we have this really strange setting, 7 rooms, specific colors, a disorienting layout, this ominous clock that commands attention. It all feels very deliberate, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the interpretations found in the material you sent really dive deep into what these elements might symbolize.
You really do. One of the big questions that comes up is whether this story is a straight-up allegory.
Right. A common reading suggests it's an allegory about, the futility of trying to escape death. Mortality is inevitable for everyone, rich or poor.
That's definitely a main interpretation. But it's also worth considering Poe's own stated distaste for didacticism.
Hmm.
He apparently didn't like stories that just hammered home a simple moral.
So maybe not a clear lesson.
Some arguments suggest it's not a perfect one-to-one allegory, that Poe does not explicitly state that moral. Perhaps it's more complex, less about a simple lesson and more about creating a powerful mood, exploring a universal truth without, defining it too neatly.
Okay, but regardless of whether it's a strict allegory, the symbolic weight feels undeniable.
Absolutely. Some interpretations see it as a commentary on those in power trying to game the system, or a story about morality, or, as we mentioned, a critique of rulers who abandon their people.
If we look at the specific symbols the material highlights, the castle itself is fascinating.
It is. It's built to keep sickness out, but it's also described as an oppressive structure. With its maze-like design and sealed gates, it creates this illusion of security that, ultimately fails.
Right, the Red Death gets in anyway. And those 7 rooms, they're packed with potential meaning.
Definitely. Some see them as representing different personality types, or even aspects of the human mind.
But the one that seems most compelling, or at least most cited, is their arrangement, east to west.
Yes. The progression from the blue room, often linked to birth, in the east, moving through the spectrum to the black room in the west. It's widely interpreted as symbolizing the natural cycle of life itself.
From beginning to end, sunrise to sunset.
Exactly, moving towards death.
And the pervasive presence of blood and the color red throughout the story.
That's described as a dual symbol representing both death and life. It's the mark of the fatal disease, obviously, but red is also the color of vitality, of lifeblood.
So it holds both meanings at once.
Seems like it. And the clock, that ominous black clock in the final room.
What about it?
It represents flying time, pretty clearly. Its striking chime is a constant, unavoidable reminder of time passing, of life shrinking, and ultimately of mortality closing in on everyone there.
Okay, so you have this carefully constructed symbolic world. It's all luxury and distraction. And then at the stroke of midnight,
the outside crashes in. As the clock strikes 12, everything stops. The music, the dancing, the conversation. Total silence. And in the first room, the blue room, a new figure appears. Uninvited.
And the reaction?
Immediate surprise, then fear and of sickening horror.
The description of this figure in the text is incredibly vivid and disturbing.
It really is. Tall and very thin and covered from head to foot like a dead man prepared for the grave.
Like a corpse.
Exactly.
Ah.
And the mask, or maybe, as the text hints, it wasn't actually a mask, is so much like the face of a dead man. Stiffened.
Chilling. And this is where the symbolism just hits you over the head, right?
Absolutely. This guest is deliberately dressed to mimic the Red Death itself. The clothes, the mask, they're spotted with blood or covered in those terrible red spots.
It's a living embodiment of the very thing they tried to wall out.
Precisely. And the outrage from Prospero and his guests is palpable. They feel the stranger should not have been allowed to come among them dressed in such clothes.
Like it's mocking them.
Exactly. Mocking their carefully constructed sanctuary, their efforts to ignore reality.
So what does Prospero do?
Well, initially terrified, he's quickly overcome by anger. Rage, really, he cries out, ordering the stranger seized and unmasked. He demands punishment for this intrusion.
But the dancers, they don't move.
They're frozen. They start to rush forward, but the fear is too great. They're afraid to even touch this figure.
Understandable.
The stranger, however, doesn't stop or react to Prospero's command at all. He just walks, quietly, without being stopped, with a slow and measured step.
Through the rooms,
following that symbolic path. Blue, purple, green, yellow, white, violet, heading west.
Towards the black room.
And Prospero, now just consumed by fury, rushes after him, into that 7th black room.
He follows him in.
He does, raising a sharp knife high over his head. But crucially, no one else dares follow him into that final chamber.
Just Prospero and the figure.
And the confrontation happens there, in the black room. Stranger turns, faces Prospero, looks at him. In that single moment, Prospero cries out, drops the knife, and falls dead. Just like that.
Wow. So the reveal is...
What? It's chillingly simple, yet powerful. The mysterious guest wasn't a person in costume after all. It was the personification or the essence of the Red Death itself.
So the disease itself walked among them.
In essence, yes. And Prospero dies, as one perspective in the material notes, a victim of his own hubris in the very fortress he believed was impenetrable.
They couldn't escape it.
No. And the end comes quickly and brutally after that. Prospero's courtiers finally build up the courage. They rush into the Black Room, desperate to confront the figure.
And they grab him.
They grab at the form beneath the grave clothes, but they find inside the grave clothes no human form, no body, nothing.
Nothing there, just the costume.
Just the shroud and the mask, empty. And the consequence is inevitable and absolute.
What happens to the guests?
One by one, the dancers fell, and each died as he fell, presumably contracting the Red Death instantly.
Everyone?
Everyone. The story concludes with those stark, unforgettable lines quoted in the material. And the fires died, and the clock stopped, and darkness and decay and the Red Death ruled forever over all.
Chilling ending.
It drives home the ultimate point. Death, disease, whatever the Red Death truly represents, it has infinite power over mere mortals. Doesn't matter how much wealth or power you have or how high your walls are.
It's a fictional plague, obviously, but could Poe have been drawing inspiration from real-world stuff? The material you sent definitely suggests that possibility.
Oh, absolutely. Tuberculosis, or consumption as it was known, is frequently cited.
Yeah.
And Poe had such a deeply personal, tragic connection to it.
Right, he lost so many people.
His wife, Virginia, his mother, his brother, even his foster mother, all died from it. One reading suggests a parallel. Much like Prospero tried to wall himself off, maybe Poe himself tried to ignore the terminal nature of the disease that just haunted his life.
That makes a grim kind of sense. What else?
Cholera is another possibility. Poe reportedly witnessed an epidemic in Baltimore around 1831, which could definitely have influenced his creation of such a swift, terrifying illness.
Yeah.
It had similar speed and shock value.
Any other candidates?
Well, other potential inspirations suggested include descriptions aligning loosely with bubonic plague, maybe viral hemorrhagic fever, or even something like necrotizing fasciitis, based purely on the visible horror aspect of the disease.
But then there's that other idea, the more symbolic one.
Right, the fascinating idea that the Red Death might not represent a physical illness at all, but something more fundamental.
Yeah.
A weakness, like original sin, perhaps,
Yeah.
inherent in all humanity, something you simply cannot escape because it's part of you.
Like a moral failing or just mortality itself.
Exactly. And it's worth remembering, as the material points out, that while these real-world conditions might have been influences, the Red Death, as Poe describes it, is ultimately a potent literary device. It's tailored specifically for the story's themes, not a clinical description of a real medical condition.
He crafted it for maximum impact. So bringing it all together, what can we take from this dive into Poe's dark world? Why does this story, written almost 2 centuries ago, still resonate? Why are we still talking about it?
Well, it taps into universal fears and truths, doesn't it? The inevitability of death, that's the big one. But also the limits of wealth and power to protect us from these fundamental human conditions.
The illusion of control.
Exactly. The illusion of control we try to create, and maybe the moral implications of ignoring suffering that's happening just outside our own comfortable bubbles. It forces us to confront these big ideas.
So to kind of wrap up this deep dive, the Masque of the Red Death is just a masterclass in using atmosphere and really vivid symbolism to explore an inescapable truth. Mortality comes for everyone, eventually.
Doesn't matter how high you build your walls or how loud you play the music.
Yeah.
And here's maybe a thought to leave you with. If we consider that idea that the Red Death isn't just a physical plague, but might symbolize some core human vulnerability or condition we all share, does that change how you see Prospero's attempt to hide?
Good question.
And what might that perspective mean for how you approach the inevitable challenges or difficult realities in your own life? Trying to build walls, literally or figuratively. Does it ultimately work?